The rusty key sticks in the lock like it's mocking me, and my tote bag slides off my shoulder, spitting out a lone cassette tape, the Cranberries, no need to argue, that rolls under the flickering neon Retro Brew sign. I see her through the glass, already behind the counter, wiping a mug with that aggressive precision she calls a morning ritual, and I think, great, she's here early, which means she's going to watch me fail before I've even had caffeine. My heart pounds a stupid, traitorous rhythm as I shove the door open, and the scent of old coffee grounds and dust hits me like a hug from my childhood. I trip over the welcome mat, naturally, and she doesn't even look up, just mutters, "You're late." I wanted to disappear into the floorboards, but instead I said, "You're early." And she finally glanced at me, one eyebrow raised, and I felt my chest tighten like I had just run a marathon in quicksand. "Your shoelace is undone," she added, and I looked down, already planning my funeral. My stomach did a weird flip when she almost smiled at my misfortune.
I tie my apron so tight I can barely breathe, and she watches me from the espresso machine like I'm a science experiment gone horribly wrong. I grab the milk pitcher with sweaty palms, determined to make a perfect foam heart, but the milk hissed and splutters like it personally hated me, and the blob that emerges looks less like a heart and more like a deflated potato with existential issues. She leans over my shoulder. Her sleeve brushes my arm, and I felt a jolt straight down my spine, electric and terrifying, and her fingers cover mine to correct my grip, warm and annoyingly confident. "You're pressing too hard," she said, her voice low, and I thought, I'm pressing too hard? I'm barely holding myself together. I burned my thumb on the steam wand and yelped like a startled puppy, and she snorted, actually snorted, and I wanted to crawl under the counter and never resurface. My face burned hotter than the milk, and I replayed that tiny brush of her hand in my head, over and over, like a scratched VHS tape I couldn't stop rewinding. While wiping down the sticky vinyl booth near the window, my knuckle hits a lump in the cushion, and I pull out a faded envelope that smells like mothballs and old rain, the kind of smell that drags you backward in time. I see my own reflection in the window, wide-eyed and frozen, as I unfold the letter inside, and the handwriting is shaky, childish, but unmistakably earnest. To my Firefly, 1994. I climbed the oak tree today and pretended you were next to me. My heart stopped, then started again at double speed, and I felt my throat close up, because that phrase, Firefly, was something I'd only ever heard from one person, a ghost from my childhood I'd buried under layers of grown-up cynicism and bad coffee. I shoved the envelope into my apron pocket like it was contraband, and my internal monologue screamed, "This is fine, this is a coincidence, I'm not going to cry over a piece of paper." I knocked over a salt shaker, and she glanced over from the counter, suspicious. "You okay?" she asked, and I lied. "Fine, just dust," while my fingers trembled against the crinkled paper. I'm restocking sugar packets when I see her slip into the back room with a folded piece of paper she found under the cash register. I saw her pull it out when she thought I wasn't looking, her movements furtive and guilty. Through the crack in the door, I watch her unfold it, her jaw tightening, and I feel this invasive, guilty curiosity, because I know that paper. I wrote it years ago and stashed it here during a summer shift I tried to forget. She reads it silently, her lips moving just barely. "For when I'm brave enough, I drew your name in the steam on my window, then erased it. I'm a coward." I see her press the paper to her chest, just for a second, and I felt my own ribs ache in sympathy, or fear, or both. She folded it into her own apron without a sound, and when she walked back out, her eyes met mine, and I panicked and dropped a whole sleeve of cups. "Clumsy," she said flatly, but her voice cracked, and I thought, she's hiding something too. We're both disasters wearing aprons. After the lunch rush, I find a napkin tucked under the salt shaker in that same booth, and my hands shake as I unfold it, because I recognize her sharp, doctor-like scrawl. "Whoever you are, your Firefly is lucky. Also, stop hiding letters in my café." I read it 3 times, each time my heart thumping louder, and I couldn't stop the stupid grin spreading across my face, because she'd replied. She'd replied, and she called me lucky, even if she didn't know it was me. I felt a giddy, reckless rush, like I'd just stolen something precious, and I immediately grabbed a receipt and wrote back, "Not hiding, leaving breadcrumbs. Also, your handwriting looks like a doctor's. Cute." I slid it into the menu on her side of the booth, and I replayed the way she'd said, "my café," like she already owned a piece of me. I tripped over the booth leg on my way out, and I whispered to myself, smooth, real smooth, as I heard her footsteps approaching the booth behind me. I watch her from behind the pastry display as she finds my receipt during her break. She opens the menu, and I see her shoulders stiffen, then relax, and she reads it with this tiny, unwilling smirk that makes my stomach flip upside down like a pancake. She presses her lips together like she's fighting a laugh, and I feel this electric thrill because I did that. I made that grumpy, beautiful face crack open. She glances around the cafe, and I duck behind the croissants, my heart hammering so loud I'm sure she can hear it from across the room. I hear her mutter under her breath, cute, huh? And I wanted to shout yes, but instead I just knocked over a tray of biscotti, and the clatter made her look directly at me. Our eyes locked, and she held up the receipt with one eyebrow raised, and I mouthed, what? Like an absolute idiot. She shook her head, but I saw the corner of her mouth twitch, and I knew this game was only just beginning. That evening, while wiping down the counter, I spot her slipping a new note into the vintage postcard rack near the door. She thinks I'm not watching, but I've been watching her all day like a lovesick creep. She tucks it between a greetings from 1996 card and a faded photo of the local boardwalk. And I feel my pulse spike because this is our secret handshake now, this silent, ridiculous correspondence that's becoming the highlight of my existence. I wait until she's in the back, then I dart over and pull out the postcard. Her handwriting is slightly shakier this time, and it read, I think I've been waiting for you to say that since I was 9. R. My breath caught, and I pressed the card to my chest, and I thought, she's R. She's the one. She's always been the one, and I was too blind to see it. I leaned against the rack and laughed, a little hysterical, a little teary, and I whispered to the empty cafe, you're going to be the death of me. I heard her clear her throat behind me, and I spun around so fast I nearly knocked the whole rack over. The next morning, I serve her a stack of pancakes with extra syrup, and I deadpan, for the grump who writes love notes to strangers. She doesn't flinch. She just pours the entire syrup pitcher over her pancakes and says, for the klutz who burns herself on steam wands. I felt my cheeks flush, but I fired back, that was one time, and she counted on her fingers. 3 times, actually. I'm keeping track. I wanted to throw a napkin at her, but instead I laughed, a real, unguarded laugh that surprised even me. And she smiled, a real smile that reached her eyes, and I felt this warmth spread through my chest like honey dripping off a spoon. A regular at the next table piped up, are you two dating or just fighting? And we both yelled, no, in perfect unison, too fast, too loud, and I saw her ears turn pink. I replayed that no in my head and cringed because the protest was way too vehement, and I thought, great, now she definitely knows I'm lying through my teeth. Closing shift, and the cafe is empty except for the hum of the old refrigerator and the flicker of the neon sign outside casting pink shadows on the floor. We're reorganizing the vintage mug shelf. I'm on tiptoes, she's reaching over me for the same chipped World's Okayest barista mug, and our fingers tangle on the handle like we're in a clumsy dance. I feel the heat of her hand against mine, and I freeze, my brain short-circuiting, because her palm is warm and calloused and right there, inches from my heart. The mug wobbles, we both lunge to catch it, and we end up face to face, inches apart, holding the mug between us like a shield and a confession. I can smell clove cigarettes and vanilla on her, and I whisper, you're warm, because my brain forgot how to form coherent sentences. She whispers back, you're shaking, and I was, violently, and I wanted to kiss her right there under the buzzing fluorescent light. Instead, I let go of the mug and backed away, knocking over a stack of coasters, and she just watched me with this unreadable, soft expression that I couldn't decipher. I escape to the back office and grab a vintage postcard from the box. Greetings from 1996, with a faded photo of a roller rink that makes my chest ache with nostalgia. And I write with trembling hands, I think I knew you in another life, or maybe just this one, badly. I hide it inside the sugar jar on the counter, the one she always uses for her afternoon tea, and I feel this giddy, reckless hope that she'll find it before the morning rush. My heart pounded as I screwed the lid back on, and I thought, this is either the bravest or stupidest thing I've ever done. Possibly both. I replayed the moment our hands touched, over and over, and I whispered to the jar, please don't hate me. I heard her footsteps approaching, and I sprinted to the storage room, hiding behind the coffee sacks, my breath coming in shallow, panicked gasps. I felt like a teenager again, and I hated and loved every second of it. I watch her prep the morning coffee from my spot by the pastry case. She opens the sugar jar, and I see her pause, her fingers brushing the postcard inside like she's touching something sacred. She pulls it out, reads it, and I hold my breath so hard my lungs ache. Her eyes soften, and she reads it again, and I see her press the postcard to our lips, just for a fleeting, devastating second. My heart exploded in my chest, and I thought, she kissed it. She kissed my words. She grabs a pen from her apron and writes something on the back, then tucks it back into the jar with this reverent care that made my knees weak. I wanted to run over and read it immediately, but I forced myself to wait, to finish the stupid croissant display, and my hands were shaking so badly I dropped a pastry on the floor. She glanced at me, and I fake smiled, and she gave me this knowing, tiny smirk that made my stomach do a triple axel.
We work side by side in charged, crackling silence. Every accidental brush of our elbows sends a shiver down my spine, and I'm hyper-aware of her breathing, her movements, the way she taps her fingers on the counter when she's thinking too hard. I reach for the same spoon rack, our hands collide, and I yank mine back like I've been burned, knocking the entire tray of spoons to the floor with a deafening clatter that echoes off the tin ceiling. She bursts out laughing, a full, genuine, unguarded laugh that echoes off the tin ceiling and bounces around my ribcage, and I felt my face flame, but I couldn't help laughing too, because the sound was so infectious and so her. She knelt down to help me pick them up, and our heads almost bunked, and she said, "You're a walking disaster." But her voice was warm, affectionate, like she was telling me a secret. I replied, "And you're a laughing hazard," and we both dissolved into giggles on the floor, surrounded by scattered spoons, and I thought, I want to remember this moment forever, even the clatter. The front door jingles, and my mom walks in, of course unannounced because she has a sixth sense for my most embarrassing moments and a radar for romantic chaos. She barrels toward me for a hug that knocks the wind out of me, then turns to the barista and says, "Oh, you must be Robbie. My daughter wrote about you all summer in '94. I froze, my blood turning to ice water, because Robbie was the name I'd scribbled in my diary, the pen pal I'd never met, the ghost I'd been pining for across 15 years and 1,000 letters. The barista's face went pale, her jaw dropped, and my mom added cheerfully, "The pen pal with the treehouse? You never mentioned she grew up so pretty." I wanted to vaporize into the steam wand and ascend to a different dimension. I grabbed my mom's arm and dragged her toward the door, muttering, "Mom, we need fresh air." But I saw the barista's eyes, wide, shocked, and glistening, and I knew the cat was out of the bag, and there was no stuffing it back in.
I shove my mom outside in his, "Why would you say that?" But she just pats my cheek with infuriating calm and says, "She deserved to know, sweetie." And then she waltzed off like she didn't just detonate a bomb in the middle of my love life. I turn back to the cafe, and the barista is standing there, postcard in hand, her expression unreadable, but her knuckles white around the card. She holds up the postcard, my postcard, the one from the sugar jar, and she whispers, "Firefly." Her voice cracked, and she said it again, louder. "You're the firefly." I nodded, barely breathing, and she took a step closer, and I saw her eyes glisten with something between fury and disbelief, and a third thing I couldn't name. "You wrote all those letters?" she asked, and I managed, "And you wrote back," and we stared at each other across the counter like we were seeing each other for the first time, stripped of all the lies and the secrets. I replayed every note, every hidden line, and I felt my chest tighten with the weight of 15 years of missed connections. She bursts out, voice trembling and fierce. "I wrote those letters too, the ones in the booth. I'm Robin. You're my secret Robin." I stared at her, my brain short-circuiting like a faulty fuse, and I whispered, "We were writing to each other for 15 years, and neither of us knew?" She laughed, a wild, hysterical laugh that bordered on a sob, and I joined her, because the absurdity of it hit me like a truck going full speed. We'd been pining for ghosts, and the ghosts were each other, standing right here in this stupid retro cafe with its sticky floors and flickering sign. "We're idiots," I said, and she nodded, tears streaming down her face, and I was crying too, laughing and crying at the same time in a messy, beautiful collision. She reached across the counter and grabbed my hand, and I felt her pulse hammering against my palm, matching mine beat for beat. I thought,
This is the best and worst twist in the history of terrible romantic comedies, and I'm the star, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. We flee the cafe floor, both of us hysterical, and I drag her into the storage room, surrounded by sacks of coffee beans and dusty bottles of syrup that smell like artificial caramel. I slide down the wall, my knees giving out completely, and I gasp, "I called you a grumpy barista to your face, and you were my childhood soulmate." She slides next to me, her shoulder pressing against mine, and she says, "You burned your hand on my watch, and I still fell for you." We dissolve into giggles, the kind that hurt your ribs and make you snort, and I felt this dizzying lightness because the secret was out and she was here, real and solid and warm against me. I stand up to pace, to process the enormity of it, but I trip over a 50-pound bean sack and I flail backward. She lunges to catch me, and she does, but then she loses her footing and we tumble together into a heap of limbs and burlap and laughter. We land tangled, her nose inches from mine, and I felt her breath warm on my lips.
We don't move. I'm lying half on top of her, my hand on her collarbone, and I can feel her heart racing through her apron, a frantic drumbeat that matches my own. She whispers, "You're heavy," but her voice is soft, teasing, and I whisper back, "You're still warm." And we both laugh, breathless and shaky, our bodies pressed together in the dim storage room. I feel the coarse fabric of the bean sack beneath us, the faint smell of vanilla and espresso clinging to her skin, and I think, I've never been this close to anyone in my entire life, and I'm not scared. She reaches up and tucks a stray hair behind my ear, and her fingertips graze my cheek, and I felt my eyes flutter closed at the tenderness of it. "I used to write your name in the steam," she admits, "but I never erased it. I lied." I opened my eyes and said, "I kept every letter in a shoebox under my bed for years." Her thumb traced my jaw, and I thought, this is it. This is the moment I've been writing toward.
The confession spills out of me like a cracked dam that's been holding back too much for too long. I think I loved you at 12, and I never stopped. I clap my hand over my mouth, horrified at my own audacity. But she doesn't look scared. She looks hungry, like I've just handed her the key to a locked room. She pokes my cheek with her free hand and whispers, "Say it again." I shake my head, mortified, my face burning like a furnace. But she pokes me again, softly, and teases, "Coward." I felt this surge of defiance, and I grabbed her wrist and said, "I loved you at 12. I love you now. There, happy?" Her grin spread slow and wicked, and she said, "Ecstatic." And then she pulled me down by the collar of my apron, and I felt her lips brush my forehead. Just my forehead, soft and deliberate. And I thought, you absolute tease, I'm going to combust into a pile of ash and coffee grounds. I kiss her properly, not on the forehead, not on the cheek, but on the mouth, because I've waited 15 years, and I'm done waiting. She makes a small surprise sound against my lips, and then she melts into it, her fingers tangling in my hair, pulling me closer until there's no space left between us. I feel her smile into the kiss, and I pull back just enough to whisper, "Was that worth the wait?" She laughs, breathless, and says, "You talk too much." Then she kisses me again, harder this time, and I feel my entire body hum with a warmth I've never known. When we finally break apart, we're both grinning like idiots, and I knock over a bottle of syrup that rolls across the floor with a hollow clunk. I thought, I'm going to remember this kiss for another 15 years, and I'll still be smiling. We crawl out of the storage room covered in flour and coffee grounds, and a regular customer stares at us like we've just emerged from a different dimension. She waves and says, "We're rebranding," and I drag her to our booth, the one with the lumpy cushion and the salt shaker that's seen too many tears, and we dump all the letters, mine and hers, across the sticky tabletop like a confession. I see the mosaic of our shared handwriting, the same shaky loops, the same crossed-out confessions, and I feel this overwhelming wave of tenderness that makes my eyes sting. "We wrote a novel," I said, and she picked up the first one and read aloud, "Dear Robin, today I saw a firefly and named it after you." I grabbed another and read, "Dear Firefly, I stole a cherry from my neighbor's tree and imagined sharing it with you."
Our voices wobbled, and I knocked over my water glass, and she mopped it up with a napkin, laughing. I thought, this is the messiest, most beautiful history lesson I've ever had. We take turns reading the cringiest ones. I find a letter from 14-year-old me that says, I am filled with existential dread and also butterflies, and I bury my face in my hands while she howls with laughter, her whole body shaking. She counter-reads one where she drew a heart and scribbled it out, and I pointed it triumphantly. You scribbled. You were scared too. She shoves me playfully and says, mine was bolder than yours. You drew tiny, anxious hearts, like you were apologizing for existing. I grab her wrist and hold it over the table, and I say, I was an anxious kid, okay? I still am. Look at me, I'm shaking. She looks at her hands, at my tremor, and her laughter softens into something quiet and profound. She laces her fingers through mine and says, I like the shake. It's honest. I felt my heart swell to twice its size, and I replayed those words in my head. Honest. And I thought, she sees me. All of me. And she stayed.
She sets down a letter and looks at me with this raw, open vulnerability that makes my breath catch, and asks, did you ever think we'd meet again? I hoped. But I'm a pessimist with a flip phone and a bad sense of direction. She laughs, but it's wet, and she says, I'm a realist who just realized I've been in love with a ghost, who's very much alive. She squeezes back, hard, and I feel the pressure of her rings against my knuckles, grounding me. I look at our intertwined fingers and whisper, so what do we do now? She leans in, her forehead almost touching mine, and says, we stop writing letters and start talking. And maybe kiss again eventually, if you stop tripping over things. I snorted and said, I can't promise that, and she smiled and said, good, I like catching you. I felt my chest fill with a warmth so bright, I thought I might glow.
I grab a fresh napkin, the last clean one on the table, and I write, Dear Robin, and I slide it to her with trembling fingers. She takes the pen and writes below, Dear Firefly. We alternate lines, trading the pen back and forth like a sacred ritual. We're not lost anymore. We're just late, and clumsy, and covered in coffee. I read it back, and my eyes stung with happy tears, and I wrote our names side by side at the bottom in matching loops. She looked at the napkin and whispered, This is our first real letter. I nodded, unable to speak, and I felt her thumb trace circles on the back of my hand, soft and hypnotic. I thought, this napkin is going in that shoebox, right next to the others, and I'm never throwing it away, even when it turns yellow and crumbles.
I find an old candle stub and a brass stamp from the cafe's antique box, and I bring them to the table like a sacred offering. She watches me with raised eyebrows as I melt the red wax over the corner of the napkin. I drip a little on my finger and yelp, and she grabs my hand and sucks the burn without even asking, her lips warm and shocking against my skin, and I felt my entire soul leave my body and float to the ceiling. She releases my finger, smirking, and I press the stamp into the wax with shaking hands, a tiny, imperfect heart that's slightly lopsided. That's not regulation, she says, her voice thick with affection. I look her dead in the eye and say, Neither is falling for your pen pal. She doesn't reply with words. She just takes the stamp from my hand and presses it again over mine, leaving a deeper imprint. And I thought, we're branding ourselves to each other, and I'm not running.
We walk to the community corkboard near the register, and I pin the sealed napkin right in the center, over the faded flyers and lost dog posters that have been there for years. A regular reads it aloud, Dear Robin, Dear Firefly, and claps slowly, and then a few other customers join in, and I feel my face turn the color of the wax, hot and prickly. I hide behind her shoulder, mumbling, This is a nightmare, but I'm grinning so wide my cheeks hurt from the effort. She turns to the crowd and deadpans, She's shy, she'll sign autographs later. I pinch her side and she yelps, and the cafe erupts in laughter that feels like a warm blanket. I whisper to her, You're insufferable, and she whispers back, You're stuck with me. I felt this giddy, floaty joy, and I replayed every single note that led us here, and I thought I wouldn't trade a single clumsy moment for the world.
She corners me behind the espresso machine after the crowd disperses, her arms caging me against the counter, and she says, "You said falling, present tense, back in the storage room." I swallowed hard and said, "I was being poetic." She stepped closer, her nose brushing mine, and says, "No, you said falling, present tense, and I need to know if you're still falling." I felt my heart pound so hard I thought it would crack a rib, and I admitted, "I'm falling, hard, into a very large vat of you." She cupped my face, thumbs on my cheekbones, and says, "Good, because I'm falling too, into a klutz who can't steam milk." I opened my mouth to protest, but she kissed me, soft, coffee sweet, and achingly tender, and I gripped her apron strings like they were the only thing anchoring me to earth. We pulled apart, breathless, and she whispered, "Took us 15 years." I laughed and said, "Worth every second." She pulled out her flip phone, snapped a photo of the corkboard, and typed a new contact, "My Firefly." I grabbed it and typed back, "My Robin." And I thought, this is our forever, written in wax, sealed with a kiss.
I walk into Retro Brew the morning after our kiss, and I see her already behind the counter. But this time, she's not wiping mugs with aggressive precision. She's holding a fresh postcard and grinning at me like I'm the punchline to her favorite joke. My heart does that stupid flip again, and I think, great, now I have to act normal, which I've never been capable of. I trip over the same welcome mat because of course I do, and she catches me by the elbow, steadying me with that warm, calloused hand that feels like home. "You're early," she says, but her voice is soft, nothing like the grumpy bark from before. I felt my cheeks flush and I said, "You're smiling. That's new." She let go of my elbow and replied, "You're still a disaster. That's not new." I wanted to kiss her again right there, but instead I knocked over the tip jar, and she laughed, and I thought I could live in this sound forever.
She hands me a latte, her first attempt at making me one, and I see a foam heart on top, lopsided and slightly melted, but she made it for me, and I feel this giddy, childish warmth spreading through my chest like sunlight. I lift the cup and say, "This looks like a potato," and she deadpans, "That's because you're rubbing off on me." I laugh so hard I almost spill it, and I take a sip. It's perfect, warm and sweet, and I think, she knows exactly how I like my coffee, and I didn't even tell her. She watches me drink it, her eyes soft and nervous, and I set the cup down and say, "It's perfect. You're perfect." She rolls her eyes, but I see her ears turn pink, and she mutters, "You're sappy in the morning." And I reply, "I'm sappy all the time. Get used to it." My stomach did a happy somersault when she reached over and wiped a foam mustache off my upper lip with her thumb. And I thought, this is my new favorite morning ritual. We closed the cafe early and spread all our old letters across the booth again. But this time, we're not frantic or panicked. We're just two idiots giggling over our teenage handwriting, like we've discovered buried treasure. I pick up a letter I wrote at 13, where I compared her to a character from Sailor Moon, and she reads it aloud in a dramatic, mocking voice, and I bury my face in my hands, mortified and delighted. "You called me Serena's long-lost twin," she cackles, and I grab it back and say, "You drew a tiny rose next to my name in your letter. That's way more embarrassing." She snatches it from me and holds it above her head, and I lunge for it, knocking over my water glass again. She catches the glass with one hand, show off, and says, "You're gonna drown us both." I thought, I'd happily drown if it meant staying in this booth with you forever, soaked and laughing. I'm wiping down the counter after our letter reading session when my hand brushes against a loose floorboard near the register. It gives way, and I see a yellowed envelope tucked underneath, tied with a red ribbon that's faded to a dusty pink. My heart stops because I recognize my aunt's handwriting, the aunt who owned the cafe before me, the aunt who passed away and left me this whole beautiful, chaotic mess. I pull it out with trembling fingers, and she comes up behind me, her chin resting on my shoulder, and says, "What did you find?" I open it carefully, and inside is a letter addressed to both of us, my aunt's looping, cheerful script that I'd know anywhere. I read aloud, "If you're reading this, you found each other. I knew you would. I hid your letters on purpose, you oblivious fools." I felt my jaw drop, and she burst out laughing behind me. I thought, my aunt was a meddling genius, and I'm going to cry. We sit on the floor,
backs against the counter, reading my aunt's letter together. She explains how she'd been collecting our hidden notes since we were kids, how she knew we were writing to each other but never told us because the waiting makes the ending sweeter. I feel tears prick my eyes, hot and stubborn, and she slips her hand in mine, her thumb tracing my knuckles in a soothing rhythm. "Your aunt shipped us," she says, and I laugh wetly and reply, "She shipped us so hard she built a whole cafe around it." I lean my head on her shoulder and whisper, "She always believed in love. I forgot that until now." She kisses the top of my head and says, "Then let's make her proud." I felt this warm, golden certainty settle in my chest, and I thought, this cafe isn't just a business. It's my aunt's love letter to us, and I'm going to honor it.
We decide to redecorate the cafe, frame our favorite letters and hang them on the wall behind the counter, a permanent gallery of our accidental romance that spans 15 years. I'm standing on a rickety stool, hammer in hand, while she holds the frame steady, and I'm trying not to look down because Heights and I are not friends. "Tilt it left," she says, and I tilt it right, and she sighs dramatically. "Your left or my right?" I felt this surge of playful frustration and said, "Your left is my right, and I'm about to fall off this stool." She grabs my waist to steady me, and I freeze because her hands are warm and firm on my hips, and I whisper, "That's not helping." She looks up at me grinning and says, "It's helping me." I nearly dropped the hammer on her head, and we both dissolved into giggles that shook the stool.
We're standing outside the cafe, staring at the faded Retro Brew sign that's been there since before I was born, and I pull out a notebook where I've sketched a new design, Firefly Brew, with a tiny glowing insect next to the letters that I spent way too long perfecting. She looks at my drawing and snorts, "You made the firefly look like a potato again." I shove her shoulder and say, "It's a stylized firefly, okay? It's called artistic license." She takes the notebook from me and adds her own sketch. A second firefly, slightly bigger, with a heart-shaped thorax that makes my chest ache. "Now it's accurate," she says. And I feel my heart swell because she just added herself to my design, to my vision. I said, "You're changing my vision." And she replied, "I'm improving it, like I improved your life." I wanted to argue, but she was right, and I kissed her cheek instead, right there on the sidewalk. A heated debate erupts over the new cafe name. She wants letters and lattes. I want Firefly Brew. And we're both adamant, standing in the middle of the empty cafe like it's a courtroom and we're rival lawyers. Firefly is too sentimental, she argues, crossing her arms. And I fire back, letters is too generic. Every cafe has a pun name. She narrows her eyes and says, "Fine, compromise, the Firefly Letter." I pause, test the name on my tongue, and I feel this perfect click in my chest, like a key turning in a lock. That's actually good, I admit, and she smirks. I know, I'm full of good ideas. I roll my eyes, but I'm grinning, and I say, "Name it, and I'll bake you a batch of apology cookies for arguing." She squints and says, "Promise they won't look like potatoes?" I threw a napkin at her, and she caught it, and I thought, I'm gonna marry this woman someday. Her first official date, she takes me to the old roller rink I wrote about in one of my letters, the one with the neon sign that still flickers and the sticky carpet that smells like popcorn and teenage sweat. I lace up my skates with shaking hands, and she's already gliding in lazy circles, showing off like a cocky peacock, and I think I'm going to fall so hard, literally and figuratively. I stand up, wobble, and she zooms over to grab my hands, her palms sweaty but steady against mine. "Hold on to me," she says, and I whisper, I'm never letting go. I take one clumsy step, and my legs fly out from under me. She catches me, but we both go down in a heap of tangled limbs and neon reflections, and we're laughing so hard we can't breathe. I thought, this is the most romantic disaster of my entire life, and I wouldn't have it any other way. We're sprawled on the rink floor, skates in the air, and a 10-year-old kid skates past us and yells, "Get a room!" I bury my face in her shoulder, dying of embarrassment, but she just waves at the kid and yells back, "We're working on it." I lift my head and say, "You did not just say that to a child." And she grins and says, "I'm establishing dominance." I punch her arm lightly, but I'm laughing too hard to make it hurt, and she helps me up.
I cling to her like a koala, my legs still jello. We shuffle to the side, and she buys me a slushie that's aggressively blue, and we sit on the bench watching kids spin and fall, and I whisper, "This is better than any letter." She put her arm around me and said, "Told you I had good ideas." I leaned into her and thought I could stay here forever, with her and this ridiculous blue slushie.
After the rink, we walked to the 24-hour diner next door, the one with cracked vinyl booths and a jukebox that only plays 90s ballads. We slide into a booth, and I order a chocolate milkshake with 2 straws, and she raises an eyebrow but doesn't comment. She just steals 1 straw and dips it in, and we both suck at the same time, our faces inches apart over the glass. I feel this electric tension, and I think, this is the most cliché, perfect moment of my entire life. She pulled away and said, "Your milkshake sharing level of serious?" I replied, "I'm letter writing for 15 years level of serious. The milkshake is just a bonus." She laughed, and I knocked over the salt shaker, and she said, "There she is." I felt so seen, so known, and I reached across the table and took her hand, and I thought, this is the beginning of everything. I pull out my Polaroid camera, the one I carry everywhere because I'm a sentimental disaster, and I snap a photo of her mid-laugh, her head thrown back, her hair a mess, the neon diner sign reflecting in her eyes like tiny stars. The camera spits out the photo, and I wave it in the air, waiting for it to develop, and she tries to grab it, but I hold it out of reach. "Let me see it," she demands, and I shake my head. "Not until it's done. It's called suspense." She pouts, actually pouts, and I feel my heart melt into a puddle. The image emerges. Her, beautiful and unguarded. And I whispered, "This one's going in the shoebox." She softened and says, "Along with all the others?" I nodded, and she took the photo from me, looked at it, and tucked it into her own pocket. "I'm keeping this one," she said. I didn't argue. I leaned over the table and kissed her, slow and sweet, and when I pulled back, she was smiling. I thought, we wrote 15 years of letters to find each other, and all it took was 1 Polaroid to seal it. She held up her flip phone and snapped a photo of me, and I laughed, and she typed, "My Firefly, forever." And I knew right then that this was the end of the waiting and the start of everything else.
Okay, be honest. Did your heart just do that thing? You know the one, where you're watching 2 girls accidentally fall in love over hidden letters, and suddenly you're grinning like an idiot? If you felt that, if you smiled, if you sighed, if you yelled, "Just kiss already," at your screen, then you're exactly where you belong. Drop a comment and tell me, which moment made you squeal? Was it the clumsy confession, the Polaroid, the letter with the red wax seal, the awkward storage room tension? Or was it the milkshake with 2 straws? Because here's the thing, you're not alone. Every single person watching this right now has felt that quiet, aching, beautiful thing called longing. And that's why we're here. So if you want more awkward confessions, more 90s fluff, more sapphic tension that'll make you kick your feet and hug your pillow, hit that subscribe button. Because this is Nostalgic Hearts. We're messy, we're soft, we're hopelessly romantic, and we're just getting started. I'll see you in the next memory. Mwah.